Mentors, father figures, and people we look up to and expect to show us the way play a big role in our lives. But most people take that for granted, growing up around people responsible for them, like parents, guardians, and school teachers. Some people are not so lucky and have to grow up on their own. Some have it even worse. In today's case, you'll find out that following the wrong role model can be worse than having no one at all.
We excavated the area. We found a white male who had been buried very shallow, maybe 12 or 18 inches deep, face down. He had an injury to the back of his head, which was consistent with, we believed, a gunshot wound. And we located a bracelet.
Hey guys, welcome back to Crimeco, your go-to channel for some intriguing and incredible true crime stories. Before I continue with today's case, remember to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. So buckle up and get ready to go on a wild ride with us. Born on December 24, 1994, Brogan Rafferty had a troubled life since he was only a few months shy of age. As Brogan was growing up, his parents' relationship got worse, and soon enough, they split up because his mother had a problem with illegal substances. With her mother out of the picture, Brogan grew up under the care of his father, Michael Rafferty. This led to an unstable home. Michael had to work long hours, so Brogan was left alone most of the time, taking himself to school and back, arriving at an empty home. Basically, growing up alone, Brogan was susceptible to any kind of love or care, and this is where Richard Beasley comes into play. Years later, and with the help of Beasley influence, Brogan condemned his whole life and paid a high price for his wrongful actions. Richard Beasley's involvement with the Rafferty's lives left a path of destruction. He was the definition of a wolf in sheep's clothing. He knew Brogan's father, Michael, through a motorcycle club they were in together years ago. Most people knew him as a religious person who wanted to be a priest, and Rafferty even allowed him to take his then 6-year-old son Brogan to church. This is where he definitely came to influence Brogan. Since his relationship with the boy was unsupervised, and taking into account that Michael was a very busy father, Beasley assumed that role for Brogan, and the boy looked up to him. His true nature came to light eventually. His relationship with the Raffertys began to deteriorate when he talked to Michael about robbing a bank and told him that he was on the run from the police. After this shocking information, his relationship with Brogan was limited. But it was too late. He had him tightly wrapped around his finger. He could make him do anything he wanted, and that's how the killings began. On November 6, 2011, a 48-year-old man named Scott Davies responded to a job listing on Craigslist, a popular website with lots of classified sections for services, sales, and job offers, among others. Davies was a single, jobless man seeking a job and found a great offer on Craigslist, which offered him $300 and a 2-bedroom trailer in exchange for taking care of a farm in Ohio. Lacking more details on the job from the site after inquiries, Davies drove down to the job site, where he met the people who posted the online ad, Richard Beasley and 16-year-old Brogan Rafferty. Davies met Beasley and Brogan at a restaurant, and they introduced themselves under aliases. Beasley, who went by the name Jack, and Brogan, whom he introduced as his nephew. Davies was led to a secluded wood under the guise of being shown where he would be working. While walking in the woods, Davies got ahead of Beasley by some steps, and that's when he heard a gun misfire behind him, and a bullet hit him in the right elbow. Fearing for his life, Davies took off running and got lost in the woods. He managed to escape, hid behind a tree, and waited several hours until he felt it was safe for him to get out of his hiding place and look for help. After some time, he found a farmhouse where he was taken in and dialed 911. Initially, the police didn't believe Davis because there wasn't any property around the area that fit the description Davis gave, but eventually, they were able to find his truck with his personal belongings. While searching the area, investigators found a number of interesting things. One was a freshly dug, empty, shallow grave, assumed to be intended for Scott Davis, but was empty since Beasley had failed to execute him. They also found 2 bodies near the site. One was identified as Ralph Geiger, and the other body was identified 5 days later as David Polly by his sister Deborah Bruce. According to her, he had gone missing after responding to a similar ad on Craigslist. The advertisement that attracted the victims led investigators to a house in Akron, Ohio, where Beasley had rented a floor in the name of his victim bagger. The homeowner said he was not the one who listed the ad, but his tenant had Wi-Fi and that they had done it in his name. Beasley had posted the job listing ads on Craigslist with the help of Brogan, who wrote and posted the ads online. Not knowing the police had reached their landlord, Beasley contacted him, and this enabled the police to trace him, leading to the arrest of Beasley and Brogan on November 16, 2011. In court, more of Beasley's crimes and criminal past were brought to light. The media began to call the case the Craigslist murders, and 3 killings were discovered. Ralph Geiger, aged 56, from Akron; David Polly, 51, from North Folk; and Timothy Kern, 47, from Massillon. Scott Davies would have been the 4th victim, but he survived and was the prosecution's star witness. He even remembered a very specific detail about Beasley, which was a tattoo on his left arm. The motive for these murders was unclear, but it seemed the victims fit a specific profile. They were older men with no jobs and were mostly alone without any kind of relationship or were estranged from their families. This was presumably so their deaths would go unnoticed for a long time, so the criminals could have time to cover their tracks if necessary. In April 2013, Beasley was convicted of aggravated murder, attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and kidnapping charges. He was sentenced to death in the same year, but due to some procedural errors, he was resentenced in 2020. This time, he had hoped that the outcome could be less extreme, but unfortunately for him, it was the same. He still faced the death penalty. Although he was also tried as an adult, Brogan's case was different. During the trial, his defense attorney, John Alexander, painted Beasley as the mastermind who put Brogan in a position he couldn't have a choice on, as the first murder came with no warning. The defense was that Brogan cooperated with Beasley out of fear for himself and his family if he did not do what Beasley wanted. The judge presiding over his case rejected this claim, saying that Brogan's age and past were outweighed by the coldly calculated murders he had helped carry out. Brogan Rafferty was convicted on October 30, 2012, of aggravated and attempted murder resulting in the deaths of 3 men and the wounding of the 4th. Being a minor, he got a life sentence with no parole. In 2013, he got a deal for parole if he offered any information against Beasley, which he rejected. It seemed that Beasley still had the boy under some kind of spell or something, because he refused a chance to reduce his sentence in order to protect him. Sometimes there are bonds so tightly entangled that we just can't comprehend their nature, and it seemed that was the case with those 2. 3 years after his conviction, Brogan, who was then 20, tried appealing to a court in Ohio under the claim that his confession was coerced, but the appeal was rejected. Throughout the trial, it was a deeply stated fact that he had plenty of chances of doing the right thing, but he still chose, for whatever reason, to help Beasley commit those murders. This case brought into light the issues of cybersecurity and showed how dangerous the web can be, as what we see online might not be what we expect. It also makes people think of children and the people who influence them. In this case, the father was so busy trying to provide for his son that he didn't see the red flags on Beasley on time to prevent Brogan from falling into his claws. Unfortunately, Brogan was the perfect victim for a predator like Beasley, who was surely looking for someone naive and desperate for any kind of attention. He took that poor kid under his wing and molded him into something that Brogan would regret for the rest of his life. Thanks again for joining us in this story. Before you go, let us know what you think about this incredible case in the comment section. We'll see you again in the next one.